Good morning. Welcome to Daylight with Dean, number 44 on May 25th, 2020. So glad that you are here this morning. What a blessing to have you guys. I hope that you've had a good weekend so far and that you are ready to enjoy Memorial Day this Monday. I'm going to enjoy my cup of Joe this morning and a great sip of coffee. There you go. Great to be with you this morning. Yesterday was a very interesting day for me. I did not plan on it being anything really interesting. It just kind of showed up that way. I was very excited about the service for Sunday. And I don't know if you had a chance to go online and watch the service for the River New Kensington yesterday, but the message was one that I wanted to preach in a very literal way. And I was talking about being Psalm 40, verses 1 through 3. And it's a psalm where David's calling out, and he says, I waited patiently for the Lord, and he turned and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the miry pit, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my heart. Many will see and fear, and many will believe in him. And those three verses have just gripped my soul significantly. And for whatever reason, as I was processing through where I wanted to film that message, we've been doing the messages in two parts, kind of a first half and a second half. We've noticed that people struggle to pay attention for 30 consecutive minutes in a straight line with the message. So we've been looking to film it in two segments, and we've been filming during the stay-at-home order, just been filming at different places on our property here in New Kensington. If you haven't caught any of that, the first unique place I made the announcements for our church on Sunday, May 29th, sitting in a bathtub on my back porch. We were given a clawfoot tub to scrap, and I thought, man, that's too cool of a thing to throw away. So we put it on the back porch, and during gatherings, we put ice in it and keep our beverages in it, and it's just a lot of fun. We've not filmed a Cialis commercial in it, thank you very much. And we've not used it for anything else except beverages and church announcements, but have just looked every week for kind of a new spot to film the message. And Sundays I decided to look for a slimy pit on my property, and I had just the pit, and so filmed the first half of the message there. And then somebody had recommended that I film on top of the roof of my garage. And so I put that together and filmed on top of my garage for the notion of God placing our feet on a firm foundation and giving us a firm place to stand. And that was one of those instances where I just wasn't sure if I'd gone too far, if it would just be corny. After we filmed, I asked the guy who helped me film, I was looking for some feedback, and he's a great guy, but verbal affirmation isn't at the top of his list. So I'm like, what'd you think? And he didn't say anything, which is always, for somebody that thrives on verbal affirmation, always, like when you get nothing, it's like saying I love you to somebody for the first time and getting nothing back, And so I threw it out there. I said, well, I just wasn't sure if it would be corny or if it would work or what. He goes, oh no, it was definitely corny. But then he said, but it's interesting. I think I'll take interesting for a sermon anytime I can. So and then I mentioned, I think on Friday, that had a very special guest that I was going to have speak on the theme that we were hitting on. The message was on death and life, and the weeks ago, you all had been praying for my pastor friend Lovey Scott, who lost his battle against COVID-19 after being in the hospital for weeks and weeks. And I had asked Pastor Lovey if he would preach at the river sometime, and he said, I'll never turn down an opportunity to preach somewhere. And then I never got around to nailing down a date and having him come, which I deeply regret. And so I had his last sermon that he ever preached on May 22nd of this year. And he was just preaching about being ready and not living with a crippling fear of death. And how if he dies, he wins, which he wasn't even sick then. So it was eerie, but magnificent all at the same time. So we condensed his message to about 4 minutes and 26 seconds of him sharing, and it was powerful. And then wrapped up on top of my roof talking about life and a new song, and I referred to the Bee Gees song Staying Alive, and I had a photograph from my niece's wedding of me dancing. My daughter's next to me, and I do the John Travolta pose with my arm up in the air, and my daughter has her hands in her face. And so when I was talking about how certain songs just make you move, I told the story about the song Staying Alive when I was in a store about a year ago. And that song came on the radio, and I noticed, came over the intercom, and I noticed everybody in the store was moving and lipping the songs and mouthing the song and just kind of feeling good. So I referred to that story, and we put that picture up there. It was funny. And then closed it out with communion, and the band U2, Bono wrote a song called 40, and it's based on Psalms 40 verses 1 through 3. And Jesse, our worship leader, found a keyboard edition of that song and learned it and played it and led us in that song during our communion segment, and it was powerful. And I say all that because I hope you got to see it. And if not, I hope you go see it. I'll put a link up on my Facebook to the YouTube link, if that would be helpful. Also on the River New Ken Facebook page, you can find it, the River New Ken YouTube. And I did a watch party on my link as well. So it was the beginning of the sermon was unlike anything I've ever done before in the 20 years that I've been preaching. So felt a little risky, but came out well. So I don't know if you've ever taken a risk at work, or at risk in your personal life, or a risk in relationships, and lived with that tension for a while. Is this going to be received well? Is this going to work? Is it going to come through? Is it going to play out the way that I hope it does, the way I see it or envision it in my mind? And there are a few things as invigorating as taking a calculated risk and then waiting to see where it lands and how it plays out. If you're ever around people that love to take risks all the time, it's a little frightening. It's a little annoying. You just want to get in their face and say, slow down, live a normal life. But Scripture is filled with people who risked for the Lord, who risked in advocating for others. My favorite is Queen Esther. In the book of Esther, whenever her people were condemned to death by a decree that the king made, not knowing the full ramifications of it all, and the queen was Jewish and would be put to death if this did not happen, if she did not go to the king along with all her people. And so she was challenged. I can't remember if it was by her uncle or, I think it was Mordecai, her uncle. He challenged her and he said, who knows? He challenged her to go before the king and plead the case for her people. And the custom was that if you went before the king, she was a queen. He married her, one of his many wives. If you went before the king as a queen without being summoned, you could be put to death. And she's like, I don't know, I might die. If I die, I die. But Mordecai said, who knows? Maybe for such a time as this, you were put in this place. One of my all-time favorite Bible quotes. Who knows? For such a time as this. And I have to tell you, who knows? Maybe for such a time as this, you were placed where you are placed right now for a bigger cause, for an important reason, to advocate on someone's behalf, to move a mountain. Who knows? Maybe for such a time as this. I'd love for you to read that story in the book of Esther. It's riveting, the whole book. It's short, it's only a few chapters. I'm grateful for the men and women who served our country and who have given their lives and lost their lives in service of our country to protect our freedom, to protect other countries' freedoms. And my heart goes out to you if you are one of those. Leslie's uncle, Jim English, was Carol's brother, was in the reserves, 43, I think he was, 43, 44. And he was flying a plane on a mission, went out Friday and was flying back early Saturday morning, and the wings froze and his plane crashed. He ejected, but did not survive the ejection of the plane and was killed in service of our country. And so this touches very closely our family, to Leslie's family. this touches very closely to your family. I thank you. May God's peace surround you this day. God bless you guys.